another exciting episode of the Million Dollar Peddlers. I'm Paper Guy. And today we're going to talk about an advantage that small sellers have over the big sellers. And a lot of you watching me are small sellers. You're working part-time on this gig like I am, or you're working out of your house like I am. And we have advantages and disadvantages. And I think that our channel, more than any other channel out there, points this out. Because again, we've got me, the one-man band, and we've got my cohort, Mr. Magazine, who has more than 10 employees, a warehouse, a storefront, et cetera, et cetera. And because of that, our cost structures are very, very different. And in some areas, he has a great advantage. He can handle a large collection. He's got the storage for a large collection. He's got the ability to get that all listed. A 10,000 piece collection can get listed by him in a reasonable amount of time. Whereas if I'm listing 100 to 150 items a week, it's going to take me about 2 years, year and a half to 2 years in order to get that listed. So although I can purchase something rather like that, it's going to knock me out of commission on other deals. The other issue that I have is, say I did pick up a collection of that size. I'm packed to the gills in the house anyway. Where am I possibly putting it at? Whereas he does have the warehouse. Let's say I did get a collection like that listed and sales boomed. Now I'm spending all of my time packing it up, whereas he has employees to do that. So he has advantages as far as things like that go. Advantages of scale. He can handle a large collection. So I can't compete against Mr. Magazine on that sort of thing, and neither can any of you small sellers. Where we can compete is the fact that our costs are a lot lower. We've talked in the past, in fact, we did a good amount of talking about it in our warehouse tour, where we toured Mr. Magazine's warehouse. So definitely do check that out if you haven't checked it out before. It's down in our videos down below. He's got a lot of costs that I don't have, and many of you don't have. First he's got the employee costs, then he's got the cost of the warehouse, property taxes on the warehouse, extra insurance because of the warehouse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's got a box truck. He's got extra costs with the box truck that, whereas many of us just use our day-to-day car. He's got extra insurance because of the box truck, et cetera, et cetera. So he's got a much different price structure than we have. We have a tremendous opportunity that's opened up to us to compete in that Mr. Magazine, and not just him, across the board, larger sellers are definitely being crippled with their labor costs. At least in New York State, as we've discussed on the program, at the end of the year, the labor costs are going $12.50 to $15 for minimum wage. And the crazy thing about that is a lot of Mr. Magazine's additional costs are percentage costs based off of the payroll. So what that means in layman's terms is he's got to pay workers' compensation. That's a percentage of the wages paid. If he pays more out in wages, he has to pay more. Similarly, unemployment insurance, that's a percentage of what he pays out. So, again, I don't know what his rate is, but say his rate's 2%, let's just say. If he pays $100 out, he's paying $2 to unemployment, and say his workers' comp's the same. Well, he's paying $4 out between those two and $100 paid out. Well, if all of a sudden his expenses go out up to $120 for a day, he's paying $2.40. So his costs go up on many different things when the employee costs go up. You'll see many, many businesses right now, especially here in New York State, complaining that they cannot find laborers. A lot of people across the board cannot find enough people to fill their positions. Mr. Magazine has positions available, and as he recounted in the one live show, which if you haven't watched, you definitely do want to catch the live show, 7:30 every Wednesday Eastern Standard Time, is he advertised on a major job board, and he wasn't able to get anybody to come in. He got 3 people to respond that said they would come in and to set up appointments, and none of them showed up. And it's not just him. My day job, I deal with businesses all around the local area, and every single one of them is talking about how difficult it is to find somebody to work. And You've got the big places like Walmart that currently are paying $18 an hour for overnight stocking. And the rumor is they're going to be going up to $20 to $21 when the minimum wage increases. Well, how can a little guy like Mr. Magazine compete with that, let alone the thousands of other employers around here? How can they possibly compete with 18, 20, $21 an hour? So they definitely have a major disadvantage, because if your employee can list, and we'll just use a number here, they can list 20 items in an hour, and you're paying them $12 an hour. And I realize it's $12.50 an hour minimum. We'll just say 12 to make the math easy. You're paying 60 cents an item to have your items listed. And that's assuming that they work like clockwork. Every hour they do 20 items. Every hour they do 20. No time do they do fewer, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now, if the cost goes up to 15, they're paying 75 cents an item. That's increased Mr. Magazine's cost by 15 cents an item. And that's leaving out, again, the unemployment, the workers' comp, et cetera, et cetera. So he's probably paying 85 cents per item to have it listed, whereas before at a $12.50 to $13 rate, he's paying 65 cents. So his costs have gone up 20 cents per item listed, and that's per item listed. It also has gone up by about the same amount per item sold, as far as the packing goes, and also gone up by the same amount per item found. So all of a sudden now, Mr. Magazine is paying 20 cents more per item that he lists. He also is paying 40 cents more per item when it gets found and packed. That gives the little guy like me and you an opportunity that we can afford to pay more on collections than he can, or the alternate, we can afford to charge less, because there's always been a difference in cost structure, but it's getting more and more pronounced. And this is at the $15 minimum wage, you're also not getting anybody. You can't fill the position. So various employers have to go to $17, $17.50, $18 an hour just to find a body to fill the position. And these are starting wages that people are doing around here. And from what I've read, this isn't just concentrated in New York State. The minimum wage amount may be, the larger states, New York, California, things like that. But even if you're down in a lower minimum wage state, you probably are having difficulty, if you're an employer, finding people to fill the positions, which then means you either need to pay more, which increases your cost, or not hire, and when somebody leaves, do the work yourself, which puts you at a disadvantage, because then you're working, instead of working the 70 to 80 hour week that all of us that are successful do work. Now, granted, mine is the 70 to 80 hours is between the day job and the side job, but you've got to work that number of hours anyway to be successful, as I think anybody knows. Now all of a sudden you're working 90 hours, 95 hours because one of your employees left. At some point, you're going to have no option, if you're an employer, but to pay people more in order to get anybody to fill the position. So now more than ever, if you're a smaller seller, you need to study that. You need to see what kind of advantage that gives you. I would suggest you go and you do as much research as you can on your competition in whatever the niche is that you happen to sell in. Take a look at their operations as best as you're able to do so. But you can make some, you can take a look at the way things are and kind of get some idea of how they do things. Take a look at their website. Take a look at what they say on their website. A lot of times people will tell you, our team of 5 people, our team can do this, we can do this, to tell you that kind of thing. Or you can take a look at the volume of items that they're selling on eBay and make a pretty good guess. One person cannot list 100 items in a day and also pack 100 items in a day. So if you see that their listings are increasing by a crazy amount and they're also selling a lot of items, they have to have some other people working for them. And so kind of learn your competition and then work your prices accordingly. Now, you can certainly raise your prices as well and just make more money per item if that's the way you choose to go. Because again, I'm a one-man band with a day job. I can't possibly sell 100 items in a day, day after day. It's just not possible. I could not stay on top of it for any number of reasons. time being the number one reason, but also things such as I don't have enough packing materials to list or to pack up 100 items every single day. So maybe if I sit there and see my sales are increasing because my prices are low compared to my competition, which had to raise their prices because of the employee costs, maybe I can raise my prices by $1 or $2 per item and keep my sales the same as they are right now, but make more money per item. So there's a lot of different ways that you can maneuver this entire situation, but I definitely wanted you to be aware of what is going on. Your competitor, if your competitor has employees, his costs are almost assuredly going up just because of the difficulty in finding people to fill the positions, and a lot of places are raising minimum wage. The other thing, if you are a larger employer, to think of is you may need to proactively increase wages depending upon where you are. Even if the minimum wage doesn't change, we'll just say you're in a place where the minimum wage is $10 and you're paying your people $12 an hour. They may get poached. I mean, there is always that possibility. So you need to give your employees a reason to want to stay working for you and with you. And that might be you have to give them $13 an hour because maybe somebody else is sniffing around to steal your employees away from you. And a lot of times an employee will jump for 25 cents, 50 cents, especially if it's a situation where they're not 100% happy to start with, but they've never let you know, hey, I'm a little unhappy because I'd be happy if we had coffee in the break room, or whatever the case happens to be. So definitely do communicate with your employees. Some employees will jump over 25 cents, and others just want some other perks to make the work environment nicer. Hey, I'd love to be able to listen to music on the job, whatever the case happens to be. If you are an employer, talk to your employees because, again, it definitely is a market for the employee at this point. And you can't be real hard on them at this point because, again, they can find another job easily in most instances. Now, maybe if you're in some backwood little town where there are no other opportunities, that's a different story. But if you're anywhere where they have other opportunities, everybody's looking for employees. And if you don't treat them right, they will leave. So if you're a small guy like I am, now is the time to sit there and look across your inventory and figure out a game plan to be able to compete, because this is a tremendous opportunity and we can't let it pass us by. And of course, I wish no ill will on Mr. Magazine, and I've talked to him about this, and he's well aware of his labor costs, and he's got some plans to be able to handle it. And essentially, he's got to buy less, he realizes, and that's what it comes down to, because he's got to cut expenses, but he cannot cut expenses on the labor side of things. Meanwhile, I can increase my prices, or I can afford to pay more if I need to. Now I've got plenty of inventory, so I believe I can increase my prices or expect a little more sales to come in. The other side of it as well is perhaps this is the opportunity for me to aggressively run sales because my prices will be lower to start with, and then I aggressively run sales. I can drive my prices even lower and still make money, whereas somebody like Mr. Magazine or somebody else with a lot of employees cannot do so. Perhaps I'll talk to Mr. Magazine, and perhaps instead of having a general 20% off sale, maybe he can only have a 15% off sale just because of his cost structure having changed. So I wanted to enlighten everybody about what's going on here in New York State, and I think it's going on in a lot of other areas as well. And no matter which side you're on, whether you've got the employees or you don't have the employees, it's an opportunity to sit back and take a look at your business and figure out exactly how you're going to make the most of it, because it can definitely be a game changer. And this is one of those situations where being a one-man band definitely has its advantages. Do hit the like button if you could, and do comment down below on where you're at, whether you have the employees or you don't have the employees. And hopefully this is a little bit eye-opening, because again, a lot of times things just kind of happen in the background and you kind of don't pay attention. And I did want to alert you all to what was going on. So hopefully you can take advantage of this and either, make the extra sales or adjust your cost structure accordingly if you do have employees. We'll see you next video.